Okay, hi everybody. We're here for another episode of Picture Shows and Petticoats. This one is a little bit different. It's Elizabeth here and not Jennifer. And this is audio only. We decided to go ahead and cover Outlander, but Jennifer's not watching it and I am. And I was so excited to talk about it, I was just going to talk about it by myself. But then I got to thinking how boring that would probably be for everyone. And so I asked my cousin Misty if she wouldn't mind joining me, because she's read the books and she's watching the show. So she is here with us tonight, so it's not me by myself. And I guess I'll go ahead and let Misty tell you who she is and like what she does and everything.
Okay, so yeah, hi, I'm Misty. I live in Texas, just outside of Houston. By day, I do environmental consulting, but by night, I like to garden and do art, all sorts of creative, crafty things, and read Outlander.
Yeah.
And I am 38 weeks pregnant currently at the moment, so that's about probably the biggest thing about me. I blog at oceanicwilderness.com, although that's kind of slowed down lately. So, but I'm looking forward to talking about the show.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that you agreed to do this with me. And even if we only get to talk this 1 week because the birth of your first child is imminent,
yes.
This will be great. So I'm excited about it. And okay, we can be like fangirls about it for a minute. Or probably the whole time. Who am I kidding? How are you liking the show?
I love it, but it's not long enough.
I know.
I think part of it's that we're so now in this like, goodness, where you just sit down and watch like a whole season of a show, kind of.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I wish I could do. So. Anyway.
I know, it's like at the end when we've only had 2 episodes, but I feel like it's been longer because I watched it when the preview came out. But
right.
At the end of every episode, I'm like, oh my goodness, you've got to be kidding me, because I could just sit and watch the entire I really think that if I had the whole thing in front of me, I would just plow right through it. So it's probably better that I just get to sit and enjoy it and talk about it. But oh my goodness, I'm enjoying it so much, and I didn't expect to, I don't know, my expectations were weird, and we're in different places. I should go ahead and probably say that we've both read, well, I have read the first book, and I'm in the second book. Okay. Misty, you're a longtime fan.
Yes. Let's see, I remember seeing The Fiery Cross, which I don't know if that's book like 6 or 5. It's kind of way in there. Back in like 2003, and it intrigued me. And then I realized it was a series, so I was like, oh, I gotta go start from the beginning. So, I don't know. It probably took me like 9 months to get through the whole series up to what that was at that point. And then so every time she would release a book, it's every 2 to 4 years, I guess. I will, sit down and devour the book, all 800 to 1,000 pages or whatever. And so yeah, I am caught up to this very last one that was just released in June, written in my own heart's blood. And so yeah, I know everything, and it's really hard for me not to spoil it.
Oh my goodness. And see, like, I am having such, okay, I'm trying so hard. I don't want to read ahead. I don't want to find out things before they happen. I did that with Game of Thrones, and I don't think it's a great thing to do. But I decided to watch the TV show there before I read the books. So, I had seen this book around. Like, I remember because I was a paperback freak whenever I was a kid, and so I would see her books there, and the covers look a whole lot like a Daniel Steele cover or something.
Yeah.
And so I just assumed that's what it was and never picked it up. And so then when I got my Kindle a long time ago, like it was second generation Kindle, the day that I got it, Outlander was free to download. And so it was the first book that I had on my Kindle, and it sat there for like 4 years before I ever even decided to start reading it. And oh my goodness, it took me a little while to get into it at first. I think that the very beginning is a little, because it's not, the beginning is so different from the rest of it.
Right.
So it took me a while to get into it, but then once I did, I just loved it. So that's where we are. We are book readers, but the plan here is to not spoil anything. If anything happens accidentally, I apologize. But yeah, we're going to try. So I guess we're just going to jump right into the first episode. There's a lot of things, I guess, that I want to discuss with you about whether or not you like it. Number one, as soon as we start off, it's a voiceover, and Claire is narrating. We see like a sweeping vista in Scotland, and then we see her standing outside of a window, looking in at a vase, and she's talking to us, she's narrating this whole thing, and this continues throughout the episode and actually into the second one. How did you feel about that? Are you enjoying that?
I personally am finding it just fine. The two other podcasts I listened to about Outlander have criticized it. They really don't like it, and I think other people, like stories I've read, haven't liked it as well. But I feel like you almost need some of it to give people the backstory, because they're going to have to crunch in so much in these episodes that you're going to miss a lot of what's in the book as well. So I feel like you need it a little bit, and I bet they start tapering it off here in the next few episodes. Mm-hmm. At least, I think people hope so, but it doesn't bother me. Does it bother you?
No, it doesn't bother me either, and I was wondering if I was the only person that didn't hate it, because everything I've read and everything I've listened to, everybody's like, stop it right now.
Right.
And it doesn't bother me at all. In fact, I think it really does help, because I think if she wasn't explaining all this stuff, like you said, you would just miss out on so much, because the whole book is her first-person point of view.
Right.
Right. And it's like, it's one of the things that I think was missing from the Hunger Games, because it's the same thing there, where it's like Katniss's point of view, and there's whole long portions of that movie where it's just her running, whereas in the book, you know exactly what she's thinking and why she's doing what she's doing. And so, yeah, I think that if we didn't have that, we'd be missing a lot of stuff. So she says two very interesting things there at the beginning, that people disappear all the time, and then it's strange the things you remember. And I've seen a lot of people like tell others to I don't know, like to remember that they think that's going to be important or something. And since I'm only like I don't want to get into this. I don't want to like ostracize people who haven't read the books or anything. But I'm wondering if I don't know if the people who are writing the show have read all the way through do you know if they've read all the way through the books and like how far ahead they're thinking?
I don't. I actually don't. I would think they've read a considerable amount, if not all of it, or at least have been debriefed by the author.
Yeah, I would hope so. And so there's certain things that go on in, I think is it in the first or second episode? I don't remember. There's certain things that I'm looking at, and I don't know the answer to it yet, and so I'm wondering if there are hints early on of things that are going to happen later, but that's really beside the point.
Yeah.
The vase was, I don't know. I thought it was interesting that she was, standing there and thinking so hard about the vase, but
yeah. I don't know.
Is that in the book?
I don't remember. It's been so long since I've read the first book that, I don't remember if that was even in there. And they may have just kind of like create a story out of that somehow.
Maybe. Okay. I just didn't know if it was like Like if they're gonna dig up a vase like 300 years from now or something. I don't know.
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, so then we have a flashback. We know that it's 6 months after the end of the war, and Claire was a nurse in France in the war, and Frank, her husband, was stationed. He said he was in London, didn't it? He was just sending guys out into the field.
Yeah.
That's what it was. Yeah. So we see early on, immediately they establish that she's a capable nurse. Like, she's like tying off a guy's femoral artery, so
right.
She knows what's going on.
I actually kind of wished, because we didn't see too much of her. In the books, she talks about her past, but when they visualizing it in the show, I actually kind of wish we had like a little mini series of seeing her during the war, and all of the things she ran into and her interactions with the people in those situations. I don't know. It actually seemed like a good little spin-off to me.
Yeah, there's so much story. There's tons to tell here. It's like, I'm so glad that they're getting 16 episodes and they're not stuck with 10 like a lot of cable dramas are, because they just could not do it justice.
Mm-mm.
So and then it flashes back to her back on the street, and she's just walking, I guess, back to their room where they're staying there. And she says that even after all the death and pain, she'd still make the same choice. And so, of course, we don't know yet what that choice is, and except for we do, because we've seen the whole episode. Which I think is, I think it's really interesting, because if you, when you don't know what's coming, I don't know. Okay. I'm jumping ahead there. But then we launch into the theme, and I love this theme so much. The song.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I actually went to Amazon today to see about downloading it, so I'm probably going to download it very soon.
Now, it's only like 1 minute and 30 seconds, so
yeah.
I wish there was a longer version of it, because I did watch a video on YouTube of the artist performing it, I think at one of the premieres, and it was much longer, and it was really good. I wish they had that one out.
Well, maybe with like everybody loving it and popularity, they will release it or something.
Yeah. So they're in Scotland. They're on their second honeymoon. That's what they're calling it. And they're attempting to reconnect with each other. He is a historian, and we find out that he has accepted a position at Oxford. He's going to start in 2 weeks. So, yeah, they're at Inverness, and they go, and the first thing that we see is blood all over the doors.
Right.
They're in this town. Totally creepy, and yeah, I appreciate that Frank is able to just immediately let her know what he thinks it is that's going on. He's such a smart guy.
Right.
He's always in historian mode. He's always got something to say about whatever. At first, I gotta tell you, I'm not a huge Frank fan, and I don't know. Maybe he'll grow on me eventually, but no, it hasn't happened yet.
I'm not a Frank fan either, but the show kind of made me like him.
Yeah.
Until later we see Blackjack Randall, but that's a different story there. But yeah, I was never a big fan of Frank either until the show for some reason. I don't know. I guess maybe the actor has done a really good job portraying the character.
Yeah. So they get to this boarding house that they're staying at, and we find out it's very close to Halloween. It's I don't know. Frank has a lot of interest in going and checking out that stuff, and they don't really go into great detail about why exactly? I mean, we know that they're there for their second honeymoon, but they clearly have a few connections there. We know that he knows Reverend Wakefield,
Hmm.
and he goes to visit him and talk to him about some genealogy and stuff, and that's kind of what he's digging into. But I feel like it went into it a lot more in the book there. But so anyway, we're there. They check out their room. We immediately find out there's a noisy bed. And, um, okay, so I have read a number of articles, and I really wish that I had saved them here so I could give these people credit. But this is a pretty strong feminist drama here. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in this that you don't find very often in a lot of TV shows, especially because and it's a period piece, and so I don't know exactly how accurate this would be, but of course every person is different or whatever. But what they're pointing out, and what I've read is the fact that Claire initiates here, and then later, like twice later, right?
I think so, yeah.
She's like raring to go and telling him that he needed to show a little more. What was it? What is it that he needed to show? If he wasn't like more industrious or something, that he wasn't going to continue his family line.
Right.
So he needed to get with the program. So, and it's interesting. Like we get a lot of back and forth with the flashbacks. I mean, they're really interwoven pretty thickly throughout this episode. And so we immediately go from that to them. They're going to, and we're going to chop up some pronunciation here pretty badly. I have a feeling. I tried so hard to look up names and everything beforehand to make sure I'm saying everything correctly, but you get what you get. I'm from Oklahoma and she's from Texas, so.
Yep.
So they go to Castle Leoch, and they're there and they're wandering through these dusty halls. Well, they're probably not that dusty. They look damp. They're overgrown with everything. And then we flash back to seeing her as a child in some archaeological dig with her uncle.
Right.
Uncle Lamb, who raised her. So I guess, and they visit Castle Leoch just because it's in the general area where his ancestor may have spent some time.
Right.
And that is Jack Randall. Black Jack. Also here in the castle is where we find out that Claire has left her undergarments at home. This isn't a PG podcast. Downton Abbey, which is what we usually cover, is fairly PG. This isn't so much. No. Anyway, so and then we slip back out of this. That's when it hasn't been. I didn't find this really, and I was worried because things were happening, like sex scenes were happening in such quick succession. I thought that this might be some like really gratuitous.
Oh, yeah.
Game of Thrones, something or another, but it's not that at all.
Right.
So then we go from here back to the home of Reverend Wakefield, and he is helping. He's helping Frank research his relatives, and that's when they start talking about Black Jack and his connections to the area. I love this actor. I did not write down his name. He's Hugo from, oh goodness gracious, The Vicar of Dibley, and he's in tons of stuff. If you know who exactly who I'm talking about. It's Reverend Wakefield. But was there anything about this like that? I don't know.
I feel like, I mean, probably in the grand scheme of things, them not showing so much of the Reverend Wakefield interactions isn't going to be as big of a deal, but in the books, I feel like, and relating to some later books, I feel like they needed some more explanation about who's around and just the background of that little family. I just feel like they
Yeah,
kind of glossed over a little bit too much, and people are gonna might be confused later on. Like, wait, how does this relate to back?
exactly. Yeah, because there's a lot of exposition with that in the book.
Yeah.
They're there a long time. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah. So then we have Mrs. Graham, the housekeeper, take Claire into the kitchen and offer to read her tea leaves for her. And she's got a pretty crazy cup. Um, the lady really freaked me out, and I think she freaked Claire out too. I don't think she knew what to make of that, and because the woman took what she was saying very seriously.
Mhm.
She said her tea leaves were contradictory. That there was a symbol in there for going on a journey, but another one for staying put. She's going to encounter a stranger and or a group of strangers or something, and one of them is her husband, which we're all just giddy about, but that's jumping ahead. And then she reads her palm, and she says that her marriage lines are divided, or mostly, if there's a divorce or something, like it'll be broken. A divided, like, love line will be broken, but hers is divided and forked. So that's kind of weird. And she says that the pattern on her palm is one that she's never seen in anyone before. Which is all just stuff for people to enjoy. But then she says she needs to leave. She needs to go take a bath. So she goes back, and then Frank follows later. And we've had all this talk of ghost stories and whatnot. And okay, I'll be honest with you. Like, I didn't put this together until some promotional photos came out for the show. Like, even reading this part in the book, I didn't connect that. I didn't get it at all. But there's a man standing outside of their window, and he's watching Claire through the window. She's brushing her hair. And Frank walks up on this. And then the man disappears. So we've got a ghost?
Spooky.
Yeah, it's something. So, he comes in, and Claire says, "You look like you've seen a ghost," and he says he's not certain that he hasn't. And then he starts talking to her about maybe the possibility, asks her if there were any Scotsmen that she took care of whenever she was a nurse, and she says, yeah, and there was one in particular, and starts talking about that, and then wants to know why he's asking. Of course, what he's asking her is if she was ever unfaithful to him.
Right.
And he wants her to know that even if she was, there wasn't anything in the world that she could do to make him stop loving her. Do you actually believe this?
No, and I didn't believe it in the book either, and I don't think anybody else believes it either. It's just, and I just wanted to know why she didn't turn around and be like, "Well, what about you?"
Yeah, like why are you so hung up on this idea of oh, and it's okay if you ever cheated on me. That's totally fine. So what are you saying, Frank? Is there something I need to know? Yeah, I don't believe it. I think it's a lie.
Yeah.
Because I just don't think anybody's actually geared that way. If they it's your spouse and you love them.
Yeah, but 5 years apart in World War II,
and that's true. It is I can't imagine without. I've only been married 5 years, and if I don't know. If 5 years apart, you're basically not married anymore.
Right.
It really would feel like that. It would feel like a total stranger.
Yes.
So anyway, we have another. What is it that? Oh, she gives an explanation. And do you know how long they were married before the war?
I don't remember, but it probably wasn't very long. I would think
Couldn't
maybe
have been.
like a year, 6 months or a year. So I don't think they, you know, knew each
Yeah.
other all that well.
Well, so we have another little encounter here in the bedroom, and it's like I said, this was really scaring me. Thought it was going to be Game of Thrones over here, but it's not. Um, but then they explain how she feels like this brings them back together, and so if this is their way of reconnecting, then that's what it's going to be. But they should probably sit down and actually talk about their feelings or something, like where they are as people, and that would maybe help.
Definitely.
But there's no time. Oh, so Frank sets an alarm because he wants to get up the next morning to go see the witches um, at the Standing Stones. So that's where they show up the next morning around dawn. I was really bothered by how quickly the sun rose, by the way. That
Yeah.
wasn't that wasn't realistic at all. Like
No.
it was like fully like 9 o'clock in the morning by the time. I mean, like seriously, like 2 hours worth of sun rising past in from dark to what we ended at. But anyway, so they're there. The druids arrive, these ladies, and they have these beautiful lanterns that they've, I guess, crafted, and they're dancing in circles through these stones. And it was really, I really liked the way that they did it. Did you enjoy it? Because I
Yeah.
didn't feel like it was,
I
in the book, it wasn't, you couldn't visualize it like that.
No, and I agree with that. Like in the book, I had a hard time, and it probably had to do with them putting the music in the background and all of that. Yeah, I know. I really enjoyed watching that, and I agree with you about the sun. I was like, it's too bright,
Yeah.
too much like daylight, and it wouldn't be like that.
No.
So,
No. You can only do so much with lighting. I know that whenever you're like trying to shoot a show. But we get a lot more. There's a ton of voiceover right here, which I think you absolutely had to have. But so they go back after they watch all of this. We see that Mrs. Graham is out there dancing as well, and after they see, they're kind of wandering around the stones, and a girl comes back to retrieve something, so they have to, leave. They get back, and Claire decides that she needs to go back and check out this forget-me-not. Oh, that just dawned on me. Oh my goodness. Oh, okay. Well, I'm picking up things along the way. So she has to go find this forget-me-not, and that's where all of this stuff happens. It's, again, I think they did a really good job right here, and I'm so glad that they didn't try to show her what it looked like falling through time.
yeah, it would probably be some weird like Doctor Who sort of
That's
spinning.
exactly what I was thinking. Like, oh goodness, yeah, spinning through space or something. Yeah, I'm glad they didn't make us watch that.
Yeah.
So there's crazy sounds coming from the stones. She touches one, bam, there we are. And she explains it being like one time when she was in a car accident, even though she said that doesn't actually describe it at all, but it was the best thing she could do. And so then she wakes up. She's lost and wandering. She can't find the car. Nothing's making sense. The fences that she had seen, those are all gone. Nothing's familiar, really. And then she wanders upon a group of, Civil War reenactors.
Right.
Yeah. Redcoats. But they're shooting live rounds, which is not what you do when you're just playing.
Right.
So, and then immediately we get her bumping right into Jack Randall, who she thinks is Frank, and then it's not Frank.
This, see, okay. I know they're related, And so in my
Yeah.
head, I've always separated out how Frank and Blackjack Randall look. Like they look alike, but they don't look the same. So
Hmm.
being, the same actor playing both characters was a little bit, confusing and frustrating. But I mean, I know that's what they have to do because they're supposed to resemble each other so much. But um, yeah, it was a little weird.
Yeah, it really was. And I think I had always imagined Black Jack with like a mustache or something, even though that's probably not even in the book. I think I just imagined him as like the evil version, and the evil version always has a curly mustache or something. So that's what I thought. Um, but he's a very bad man, and
Yeah.
we see that immediately. Not a good guy. Tries to rape her, has a knife to her throat. This is very clearly not her husband. So then, luckily, we have some Scotsmen wander in and rescue her from Jack. Um, but he has to knock her over the head to get her to actually go with him. So, but whatever you have to do to get her out of harm's way, that's fine. And it's funny though looking because what was a dress in like 1945 is underclothes in 1743. It
Yes.
just doesn't cut it. I just don't know. I'm sorry, but that wasn't appropriate to wear in October in Scotland ever. Like that you would be so cold wearing that. Claire, you should have had more clothing on. Because it's like freezing there right now. I saw that someone today was taking a walk and wearing a winter coat, and
Wow.
it's August. Um, so I like that she once she came to in her voiceover we found out just how badly that man smelled, the one who rescued her and put her on
Yeah.
a horse and took her away. Um, because and I've listened to a couple of podcasts and they're all right. They've all mentioned it. That's the thing that you don't really always think about with like costume dramas and stuff.
It's
Set.
how the smell. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean people like yeah. Ugh. When you oh yeah.
That or their teeth and their, yeah. I can't.
The animals in their wigs. Like, let's
Yes.
not even talk about France. So gross. But we get there. They're in this. They're in this little. Oh, I don't know what you would call it. It was just like a little shack, and Jamie's there by the fire. We don't know he's Jamie yet, but it's Jamie, and everybody who knows what this show is about knows who Jamie is. Jamie's injured, and while Claire knows that she would be better off just keeping her mouth closed, she goes ahead and says, don't, whatever, you're going to break his arm if you do that. You better let me set it. And so she shows them that she can set an arm, and they're all very taken aback by her forward nature.
Well, and then they have that moment where they're kind of looking at each other, and Jamie's like, you know, kind of like totally trusting her, even though he has no idea who she is, where she came from, you know.
Well, yeah. Oh, you mean like right after she sets his arm, he's like,
Yeah,
oh,
like
you're an angel.
yeah. It's just kind of like, okay, some woman, hopefully she knows what she's doing, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Well, so then we have, and this, it picks up speed here at the end. She's there. They put her on the horse with him. He covers her with his plaid.
Yeah.
Probably like maybe the best thing of the entire episode. Tries to keep her warm because they're riding this horse through the rain, trying to, I guess they're going north up to the castle. And because Frank has already talked about this before, and as they're riding along and they see this rock, this hill, he's mentioned that the Redcoats used to And by the way, I love that they call them redcoats,
Right.
because that's just so what, as Americans,
We would call them.
yes.
Yeah.
um, yeah, and so, Frank had told her that that's where the redcoats would ambush a lot of times. So she was able to warn them, and she just gets dumped right off that horse. And her hands were tied together, weren't they? She was bound at the wrist.
I don't remember that, but
I thought she was, but I'm not positive. It didn't look like it would feel very good either way. Of course, she tries to run away. Like, where are you going to go, Claire? Like, have you not figured out that you are not where you need? I mean, no, it's not going to work. Well, we know where she's going to go. She's going to try to go back to those rocks. But then Jamie comes and he finds her again and threatens to carry her. But it wasn't like that. It was like he gave her a choice. I mean, kind of a choice, but he was going to carry her probably no matter what. We find out he's shot, and so she has to tend to him. None of these Scotsmen. It's like 1743. Nobody knows what an antibiotic is. They don't have any antiseptic. They don't know how to clean. They don't know what infection is. It's
germs. I mean, like,
yeah, nothing. And it's clearly it's like it's a language barrier. And so she asks for alcohol, which of course they all have.
Sure.
And so they clean that thing out, and she uses a number of choice words there. They're all just scandalized by her
language.
Yeah, it's something else. And then finally they make it to the castle, and it's where she was just a few days previously. And I think she's clearly totally blown away, and standing there riding that horse in what amounts to underwear. So poor girl. I felt so. It seemed like she was so cold.
Yeah, I think other than being cold, I don't know if she necessarily feels like she's in her underwear yet. I think everybody else probably does.
Yeah.
But to her, it's, hey, it's my clothes, but...
well, so if you want to, we can go ahead and just go right into the second one.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Because it basically just starts off right where they leave us after the first episode. They're not even off their horses yet. She's already thinking, as she's looking at all these faces around her, like, how is she going to? She needs to find someone who will help her get back. That's the first thing she's concerned about. And I'd forgotten how much I liked this lady from the book. But we get introduced to Mrs. Fitz right here.
Yep.
And she's what is she the head housekeeper? What is it exactly? The cook? I don't know.
She seems to be kind of a little bit of everything, like just almost like the matron that knows how to do everything, and everybody just kind of goes to her. That's what it kind of seems like.
Yeah. She's she's in charge of a lot of things. I think she runs a lot of stuff, and it seems like a lot of people there answer to her. So, she is not impressed with what Claire is wearing.
Yeah.
Everyone's pretty concerned about whether or not Claire is a prostitute. She swears that she's not, but nobody really knows. Like, why would a woman be running around and like that in the woods?
Right.
And she's worked out quite a story that that she's been telling them, and keeping to the truth, like Frank has told her. You keep as close to the truth as you possibly can, and only say, only give the information that's absolutely necessary.
Right.
Well, Mrs. Fitz asks her if she's a beaten, which is, I guess, it was a family of healers. think she
Yeah.
asked her if she was a charmer too. So I don't know if that was just
Well, I
another.
think she asks her that after because she wants to go. Well, and at this point they're calling Jamie Mr. McTavish, right?
Yeah.
And she wants to go check on him before she goes and takes care of herself. So I think that's how Mrs. Fitz
Yeah.
asks like, why she's, oh, are you a charmer kind of thing.
Yeah. So she does go tend to Jamie by the fire. Yes, we have another fireside theme here. Those are becoming a thing. They're kind
Yeah.
of. So she gets a little bit of his history with Black Jack there. We know that he's had some encounter with him in the past. He's kind of referenced it. And it's there that Claire finally sees his back. Do you want to talk about that a little bit? Like what's going on there? His back?
Yeah, I mean, it's just where I can't remember if they flashed back at this point to
Oh, yeah, they
Lollipop.
did. To
Okay.
the yeah.
Okay. I wasn't sure if it was there or late a little bit later, but yeah, so they flash, he tells basically how he's come across Blackjack, I think once or twice before, and the time before was at Lallybroch when Blackjack had come by his troops. I don't know what they were trying to do, collect taxes maybe, or
Something like that, yeah.
something like that. And so his sister is basically like being held captive by Blackjack Randall, and Jamie's trying to fight him off, and basically Jamie loses, and um, his sister ends up being raped by Randall. Anyway, and then he's taken to what was it, Fort? Can't remember.
It's Fort William.
Fort William.
I've
Where?
been there.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I think so. I think we like drove on my little tour of, my driving tour where we
Right.
really didn't stop hardly at all. We just drove. I think that was one of the places.
So anyway, and that's where he's whipped. Man, I'm having a hard time remembering some of this.
That's
So,
okay. Yeah.
so long.
No.
But yeah, basically, so he has scars from his encounters with Blackjack Randall.
Yeah, and I mean, I think he's had more than I think he's because they flogged him twice. It was when they took
Right.
him back to the fort. They flogged him almost to death, and then let him heal up enough to then flog him again. And his back is a mess.
Yeah.
It is really bad. So while Claire is helping him out there, I mean, she can't help. She starts thinking, well, he says some things. What is it that he says to her? Is this the part where he tells her that she's a good woman, that she's and that her husband is, he's a lucky man and all this stuff. And then so she starts thinking about Frank and kind of starts crying and I don't know if this is just supposed to be what she's thinking or if we're actually getting a picture of Frank looking for her.
I think it was just kind of a way to tie in. Yeah, probably tie in the past. I don't think it's her thinking that she's looking for him.
Well, I mean because, it shows him and the Reverend, like, finding the car
Right.
and standing there. But what I think is going to be interesting is if that sort of thing continues in any way. Because in the book, it's all first-person Claire. But
Right.
if they what if they continue to show what's going on in present day? I don't think that they'll do that. I think there's way too much going on to do that. But
Yeah, I don't think they will do that. I think that was probably a one-time thing.
good, because I'm getting a little bit of whiplash here, like
Yeah.
going back and forth all these places. But yeah, so sad, and she starts crying, and then Jamie asks her if her husband is dead, and that's when she says
Well,
that he is, because as far as she knows, she has no way of getting back to him. She's kind of resigned herself that she may be
Stuck.
in. Yeah.
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 Well, and the fact that technically he's not even born, so it's like.
Oh yeah, and that was it. He asked that was it. That was because it was technically he said, is he not alive? And she's like, no, he isn't, because he's not, because it's
Right.
like 100 and some odd years before he was born. So then we've got this nice little scene with Mrs. Fitz getting Claire dressed. They didn't have. I mean, what's so interesting to me is the amount of layers that she has to put on. There's so much clothing.
And the thing that goes around her hips, I didn't even like to poof out the dress.
I know. I didn't. I had never seen anything like that. I had no idea. Mrs. Fitz doesn't know what to think of Claire's bra because they don't. That wasn't even invented yet. I don't even know if it was invented.
Yeah, I didn't think that was even invented till like the 1900s sometime.
Well,
Yeah.
anyway, so she gets her all dressed, and then after, I think it's after she's had a night of sleep, or a day of sleep, she has to go and meet with the laird of the castle, Colum. And this was great too because I never was able to quite understand. He's got a physical disability, some kind of degenerative condition in his legs.
I think she had called it the Toulouse-Lautrec syndrome, I think.
Yeah. Like later, she says after a few days of watching him, she thinks she had diagnosed him, but then whoever was the disease was named after hadn't even been born yet. So, right. But I think in the books they described his legs as looking withered, and wow, they did a great job of.
Oh yeah.
I didn't even know. I had no idea. So, she very politely tries not to look. You can tell whenever he walks in, and he begins questioning her, and he does not trust her at all. Everybody, I think, between him and Dougal, they think that she's a spy.
Yeah.
So I don't know. What do you now? I didn't even bring up Dougal earlier, but he's already come into play here. What do you think about these brothers? Like,
I remember liking Colum in the books and not liking Dougal.
Yeah.
And I think that still continues now in the show. And the tension between the brothers that we see later is just like,
Oh yeah.
Yeah, just like the eye contact that they have says everything. They don't need to even speak. It's pretty crazy.
Well, and I think okay, so the next scene that we get is Dougal playing in the yard with the boys, one of whom we later find out is Hamish, Colum's son, who Claire mistakes as being Dougal's son.
Right.
But I'm sorry, and I don't think it's reaching here to. Did you see the look that Dougal had on his face after, like, when he was like telling Hamish what a good boy was, like, to go off and play?
Oh, yeah, it was like.
They're
this like look of love and like proudness and pride.
Yeah. It's okay. I told you that, like, your pregnancy, you could like do whatever.
I'm making up words now.
It's fine. But it's like, okay, clearly there's something else going on there. Yeah. I got the feeling immediately, and this isn't using any other knowledge that I have. I was just like, oh, something's not right. And then later at dinner,
yep.
Claire makes the mistake that anyone would make if they had seen that exchange,
Right.
assuming that Hamish belonged to Dougal. And yeah, that wasn't good to do. But she can't help it. She's loaded up on the Rhenish wine that
Yes.
they keep pouring. Um, I tried to count. I think it was 3 glasses in less than. I mean, of course, the span of dinner was probably longer than what we actually saw on the screen, but it was less than 10 minutes, and she had consumed like 3 glasses of wine. So,
And I feel like I feel like in the dinner section for some reason
uh-huh.
that in the book she mentioned that the author writes that they didn't really use utensils or they didn't have forks or I don't know. There was something about that dinner that made me think it was like a little more rustic than it was portrayed in
Yeah.
the show.
I think you're right. I vividly remember her like wondering where a fork was because she had to pick everything up to eat
Yeah.
it. Yeah, so that dinner was uncomfortable. I was concerned for her safety. I mean, they're not going to hurt her, but that's the thing. In the beginning of this, her position was so just
Tenuous.
yeah, and everything was really up in the air, and they could have done anything that they wanted to with her.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it wasn't the safest thing to be a woman back then, just period at all. I mean, a lot of things could happen to you. Um, so then we have, I'm sure I'm probably missing a note here or something, but in between there, something they, she wants to go tend to Jamie. I think it's the next day, and she tells Mrs. Fitz that, and Mrs. Fitz gives her a look. Mrs. Fitz knows what's up.
Yeah.
Like even if nobody else could, like there's
You keep wanting to see Jamie. Why?
yeah yeah. Um, so she goes out to the field where he's working with the horses, which that was also a great scene. And yeah, I haven't mentioned this either, but they they speak so much Gaelic here, like
Yes.
all throughout it, and we don't get any subtitles, which was done on purpose because Claire doesn't know what's being said.
Right.
So you can kind of infer some things, but I love that whenever he's working with the horses and talking to them, and it's great. So she brings him lunch. She's going out there to change his bandage, and I don't remember exactly what his excuse is, but that doesn't happen. She doesn't get it changed.
No.
I think we find out later why, but yeah. So that's when we have a conversation with Jamie about what exactly he's wanted for, and we
Right.
get more of that history of his time spent at the fort in prison. And had they just broken him out? Like, is that what was going on whenever they were bringing him back? Had they just then broken him out?
I think so, because that's why they were moving under cover of darkness and trying to be stealthy.
Okay.
I do
I can
believe.
remember. This is another part where I have trouble not bringing in book stuff,
Yes.
because there's so much background that you find out later. But is that Rupert that's following her around? I get all these guys mixed up.
Yeah, it's Rupert or Murtaugh, one of them.
Yeah, and he says,
They have a sense of humor, though, whichever one it was.
he's great. He's really great. About just wait until Angus is the one following you around. Yeah, that was fantastic. Apparently Angus, what is it? He likes his women with the tang of the barnyard on. He likes his female companions with the tang of the barnyard. Ugh.
Yeah,
So she says she'll bathe regularly then. So then we get our first encounter with is it Galus? Galus Duncan?
Yes, yes.
Okay. And she seems like Oh, she's really mysterious. They did a good job of making her, kind of.
She's intriguing, but like there's something there that's.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And so she and Claire have this, you know, discussion about, herbs and plants and everything. They're interested in the same things.
Yeah, bonding a little bit, but Kalis gets a little, I don't know, weird.
Yeah. Um, I have some questions that I want to ask you not on this about that, but I think I'm not going to because I don't honestly want to know the answer. So that I'm just leaving that. So I don't even know why I said it. Um, but yeah, so she's kind of making a friend a little bit. There's someone she feels like maybe she can talk to, uh, which has got to be good whenever you're in a. I mean, it's one thing not to speak the language. It's another thing to be in a completely different time. You're just totally
Yeah,
a foreigner.
nobody, no friends. I mean, you have no concept of, custom.
Yeah, I mean, she has no idea how to behave. Like
Yeah,
she tries, but I, it's to be I mean, a semi-liberated woman
right.
from the 20th century. Ugh, yeah. Um, so then we have a big scene. She says she'll see her tonight in the hall. Claire doesn't have any clue what that's about, but it's when Column sits and I guess I don't know exactly what they're called. I guess they're his tenant farmers or something. Uh, come to
Yeah,
see him,
it's
petition him with their needs or whatever.
it's I don't know. It's almost like feels like royal kind of like like you're going to go see the king to list, talk about your
Yeah,
grievances kind of thing.
yeah. He like holds court there and solves people's disputes. Um, so we see a number of those things again, all none of them in English. And Galis tries to describe them, but like Claire says, some of it's lost in translation. Um, but then we have one that's sort of important because it gets some attention from Jamie, and it is okay. And I've looked up her name and how to pronounce it, and there's a lot of conflicting information out there. And apparently, the way that they're pronouncing it in the show, and the way that the reader in the audiobook pronounces it, they're using the Irish version of that name.
Hmm.
But, and for the sake of, I guess, us, I think it's probably the easiest thing for us to say. We're going to call her Leary.
Yeah, I think that's what I had read when I remember reading the book and being like, how do you pronounce this name? Having to, I don't know, Wikipedia it. I think that's what they
Yeah.
said how it was pronounced was Leary. But,
Yeah. Well, apparently it's not that's not the Scottish way of saying it though.
oh,
So they've got to, yeah, because
okay,
there is an appropriate way, and it's something I cannot produce
okay,
the
okay.
sound. I don't think. Um, but anyway, that it's. I guess Leary is accused by her father of being loose with the fellas, and so she's going to be punished. But there's a way out because someone can step up and take her punishment, and Jamie does it. And it seemed to me like maybe somebody was daring him to do it, that he and the guys were kind of joking around, and he decided to go ahead and do it. I don't remember. I don't know. It didn't make a lot of sense to me because he later tells Claire that he knew who the girl was, but he doesn't know much about her or anything.
I feel like that's different than what the book was.
Mhm.
I think there was a little bit of history between them, but it wasn't, it was definitely not I don't really know this person kind of thing. I think they did know each other.
I think you're right. I definitely think that there was more there in the book, but maybe they're not gonna maybe they're not gonna take it that direction, which is fine with me. I'm cool with that. I mean, we have enough minor characters to worry about. That's plenty. So he takes her punishment, gets beaten up, and Claire has to tend to his wounds again by the fire. Maybe we'll get one.
That's where all the good light is in the castle.
I know, you're right. You're so right. That's where all the light is. Yeah, so we keep getting these. And, Claire then says to him, was there any other important conversation here other than that I'm not going to be the one to take off the dressing on your wound because I'm leaving tomorrow?
Yeah, I think they're just kind of saying goodbye. I mean, I guess really she's saying goodbye.
Mm-hmm.
Even if she might have any kind of feelings towards him at this point, I think she's still just
There's not much there. I mean, she's realistic. I mean, it's
right. Yeah, she wants to go home.
Yeah, she wants to go back to her husband. She loves her husband. Let's be clear about that. And I think that made a really good point of showing us that she loves her husband and that is who she wants to be with. She has no designs on this young man in a kilt. And he's pretty. I really love the way that they've handled his character. I think the way that they're interacting with each other is great. I think it's really sticking to the book very well, and I think it's important to maintain that going forward. Just the fact that they become friendly, but they're not in love with each other. I mean, that's not what's happening right now.
Right.
So she plans to leave. She's been told by Colin that she can leave. She can go with Mr. Petrie, and he's going to take her back to wherever she came from so she can make her way back to her relatives in France.
Right.
Yeah. And then it comes time to leave the next morning, and Dougal wants to see her, which I skipped over it earlier, but we find out Dougal is the one who's keeping eyes on her all the time. He has men following her around. And that Dougal and I guess Colin together have decided that she's going to stay there and she is going to be their healer because they need someone. Theirs died. And
Colin takes her down to that room that we initially see back when she's with Frank, exploring the castle, and they have their little interlude. So it's that same room, but this time it's all made up for a kind of medical sort of situation back from the 1740s.
Yeah, and it's so dark and damp looking down there. I don't know how anybody. I don't like humidity, so I don't think I would have. I don't think I would have enjoyed that very much. Yeah. So she says, "Am I your prisoner?" Or am I a captive here? And he says, "Only if you decide to leave or something." And well, that's sort of the definition of what that means, dude. So she's there. She's stuck. And really stuck now. She at least thought she had a way to
leave.
Make her, and now she doesn't. So, no doubt she's going to start plotting her escape in this next episode. But
and it ends with, them closing the door on her, and it doesn't look. It looks like it locks, but I don't think it does. I think it just shuts. But
yeah.
This final, you're here, you're not going anywhere.
I had that same feeling. I was like, are we supposed to think that she's been locked in that surgery? But I don't think that was the intention. I think, it was just the way the door shut. But it definitely felt like that.
Yeah.
So, poor Claire. I'm looking forward to the next one. I could just sit and watch this all day.
I am too. I just, like I said, it's really hard not to be like to interject anything else that I know that we know, even just from beyond later in this book. Like,
Yeah,
you know, so
because there's so much. It is so good. If you're not watching this show, well, I don't know why you're listening to this, but
yeah.
um, if you're not watching this show, you need to start watching it because it's fantastic. And they've just done such a good job. I'd never expected it to be this good, and it's really
No.
good.
I was very skeptical. I think it was like a year ago. When I heard that it had been picked up.
Hmm.
And I was just like, I've always wanted them to make a movie or make a movie series, but now that I'm seeing it as a TV series, I think that it probably will do better justice to the books in the long term than movies will.
Hmm.
So
Definitely.
yeah,
There's
it's just
just
there's so much to say.
oh goodness. Well, I guess we probably covered it all for right now. It's probably long enough, and I'm sure that you're exhausted.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, I will go ahead and if you'll stick around, I'm going to sign off.
Okay.
And yeah. So, if you want to check us out on Twitter, we're at PS Petticoats. You can find us there, tweet us about Outlander. Usually we're live tweeting during the shows. However, we will not be live tweeting during the third episode. But you can find us there. You can go check us out on Facebook and on our blog. Just Google us. We're the only picture shows and petticoats around. And we will see you next time. Bye bye.
We will go, we will go, I and you. And away in the woods, we will scatter the dew. And the salmon behold, and the ouzel too. My love, we will hear, I and you, we will hear the calling afar of the doe and the deer. And the birds in the branches will cry for us clear. And the cuckoo unseen in his festival mood, and death, oh my fair one, will never come near. In the bosom afar of the fragrant wood, in the bosom afar of the fragrant wood.